when I'm doing these videos. It's wild, seriously, truly wild. Welcome to another edition of KeyThoughts. First off, I want to apologize if you hear any grinding sounds. There is some construction going on in my building, and whatever they're doing goes through the entire foundation and into the back of my teeth, and I'm going crazy. But I decided to do a KeyThoughts anyways because the KeyForge mind never sleeps. And I'm coming off of a week where I had a very devastating loss in ABR to my guy Rise from Ancient Bear Republic. He trounced me in Triad after I got off to a glowing start, managing to forge 3 keys with a single Chota. As a result, the next 2 games did not go as well. And part of it was me. It is me, yes. I will not diminish the level of play that Rise did whatsoever, but I felt that I let myself down with some of the choices I made, mainly due to, I guess, not playing high-level KeyForge for quite some time and forgetting some basic rules. So I wanted to take this time and this KeyThoughts episode to go over some of those things that I forgot. But first, let us go into the card of the week, which I haven't done in a while, and I wanted to basically get back into that. So the card of the week is none other than the favorite Nature's Call. For those of you not familiar, it has a Ember Pip. It's an action from Untamed. It says, play, return up to 3 creatures to their owner's hands. I absolutely love this card for so many reasons. I think it's one of the most versatile cards in the game. It can be used as offense, defense, disruption, whatever you kind of need, it can come into play. And the reason why it is this week's card is it's one of the reasons how I got to use Chota and play it 3 times, the Chota, to get 3 keys with just a singular. One was with a regrowth, one was a normal play, and one was with a Nature's Call. And the Nature's Call was actually quite instrumental because my opponent had dinos with Exalted Ember, and as a result, I could lift the dinos to gain Ember, lift my Chota, and then drop Chota to forge a key. And it was quite spectacular the way that played out. I was super happy with that. And then Nature's Call obviously has the ability to lift other creatures with upgrades, removing said upgrades, which is also fantastic. And lastly, you can use it just to be disruptive in terms of maybe choosing 3 creatures from 3 different houses your opponent has, put them back in their hand, and create a problem. Or obviously, if you have good creatures with nice play abilities, drop them, bring them back to hand, drop them again. So really versatile card. I think it has always been one of the best cards in the game and always will be. I do hope when Untamed returns, we see a return of Nature's Call. Now, on to the things I want to talk about this week. So when I was playing, there was the deck reading process. Granted, I was doing this after a 9-hour day of work playing a Triad, which is probably one of the worst things you could do because it's one of the most mentally exhausting formats. But that being said, I did not read a deck list carefully, and I had 2 of my 3 decks were very steel-heavy decks that needed to utilize the game mechanic of steel. And in my ever-growing wisdom, I was looking at a deck list and looking at things, and I'm sure we've all done this before. You're like looking for very specific big cards that could come up, and you forget to analyze sometimes the minutia of a deck list. And what do you think I overlooked? Yes, folks, that is correct. I overlooked a Discombobulator, which got played on a Centurion Stenopolis, which just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And I had no way of getting rid of it. And I basically had all these steel cards. I had all the answers, but I could not play them for effect due to stealing being shut down. And it just really hurt my deck. And the reason why I'm speaking of this, of not only just the overlooking the deck list process, because that is something we haven't been doing as much, I guess, at least for myself, because I'm not playing as regularly competitively, just having time to look at a deck list and really take it in. But taking that time to A, know what your deck needs to do, and B, searching for counters to that. I think I made a huge mistake in that regard. So that was one problem. The next problem is that I actually had answers. So I had 2 unlock gateways in the deck I was playing. And early on, a decent board established, but I should have held the unlock gateways for said discombobulator being an issue potentially, because I played it early and I did not draw my second unlock, and I was basically doing the most to cycle, like doing super ineffective turns just to try and get the Sinopolis off the board so I can start playing my game again, and it just never happened. And so if I had waited and held the gateway knowing that whatever creature the discombobulator went on was going to be a problem, and there was a lot of big creatures in my opponent's deck, I would have actually set myself up better. So the lesson that I'm trying to revisit and go over here is make sure you're aware of the problem cards in your opponent's deck and the ability to deal with it. Because that is what I forgot, is once it was there, I knew how to deal with it, but the problem is I didn't get the card to deal with it. So I'm sitting there waiting, trying to find this card, which I already had one of and I played, and I just kind of dropped the ball in my own thinking and thought process and not being more patient and holding that, because I could have dealt with the other board in different ways. But I went for quite an aggressive early, just let's get the board and start over. And I mean, it was very unfortunate because I was just playing in one of those games, and I know we've all been there, where you really can't do anything. You know you're losing, and you need a hope and a prayer to just get yourself back to a place where you're not even not losing, but where you can try and get on a path to recover. But unfortunately, sometimes it's too late. Like by the time I was at a point like, okay, I only have a few cards left and I can potentially draw now, my opponent was already 2 keys in with a nice advantage, and it just didn't play out. So shout out to Rise for the masterful play and shutting down my deck so hard. Since this was tried, I guess there's 2 ways I could have gone about this. I could have banned that deck knowing that 2 of my 3 decks required steel so hard, and I didn't. I chose for a deck that... we submitted decks, first of all, with DOK links, which I actually don't like in Triad. I think that is... I almost want to say it's an illegal way of doing it. I think giving that information of you can see the stats of a deck is not how Triad should be played. You should have 3 Archon cards, which you can create on Discord, thanks to Sky Jedi's Archon Matrix. And you should just see the cards in the deck and have no other information. Not its SAS, not its stats. And I'm hoping people in ABR see this and realize this should be a mandated rule moving forward. I just don't like that your opponent can see the stats of your deck without having to actually do the work of reading it and assessing the Archon card. And so that bothered me a little bit, because I don't think that is the right way to play. And as a result, I also saw that his deck had it was a ridiculous power level with like a 17-4 OP record, and I was like, okay, this deck clearly is really good, and I banned it. And it was a really good deck, but I think if I had paid more attention to just the list and didn't have other distracting information, I might have honed in on the discombobulator a little bit more. Although the deck wasn't all that didn't look all that menacing. It just came together really nicely. But that's my 2 cents for Triad. I think you must be only looking at Archon cards, not DOK lists, as that gives a weird amount of information that is not true to the nature of competitive KeyForge. So I'm going to get off my soapbox now on this one. But yeah, basically, this was a good learning experience, though. And part of the reason why I'm playing ABR this season is because KeyForge is clearly coming back. And I have a lot of rust from not playing competitive KeyForge. So I'm trying to elevate and do things at a higher level and get back to those good habits. And so obviously this is a good lesson to remember to look for the counters. Remember what your counters are for your deck going into a game, and try and identify when those are and how will you deal with them when they show up on the board. And that is what I failed to do, and just put myself in a poor position where I could have been more set up for success. So hope this was helpful, and I hope all of you are getting back to KeyForge at a level you wish to play, whether that's competitive, casual, in person, or just playing again. And any newcomers to the channel, really appreciate you. I'm going to be creating content much more regularly now. We've gone back even on Help from Future Self to an episode every week instead of twice a month. And as a result as well, hopefully you'll feel inclined to support me on my Patreon. And for those of you who are also like SoulForge, those are basically the two things you're going to find here: SoulForge content, KeyForge content, all the forging. So yeah, hope you've enjoyed this, and hopefully this dialogue was helpful for you, and these thoughts I've had to help remind you to take that time to know what your deck needs to succeed, know what you can have hurt it, and how do you move around those plays, and what can you do to counter that when it happens. And as always, folks, may your ember never be stolen and your keys forged promptly. Have a good one.